Well, hello again and welcome to another episode of the Hyperion Adventures Podcast. I'm Tom. As always, I'm here with my wonderful, beautiful Toy Story loving wife, Michelle.
Hello. Thank you, sweetie. How's everybody doing out there?
Hopefully they're doing as well as we are today. Right? It's so good to have you with us. We are recording this. We're back on Sundays again. We're recording this episode on Sunday, June 23rd, 2019. And yes, we are back home after our vacation from the last week or plus.
A couple of weeks. Yeah. So we had a wonderful time, but it is great being back home, being with more familiar studio.
Studio or kitchen table, studio. But yes, it's so good to be back with you. Thank you for joining us today. In the future, you can find us most everywhere you get podcasts. The best place, however, to find us is on our website, HyperionAdventurespodcast.com. Sprucing that puppy up, trying to make it better for everybody out there, and hopefully you can find some interesting stuff within it, including I did do a written review of Toy Story 4 just the other day after we screened that on Thursday night.
Right, which we're going to be talking about. But and if there's anything that you feel our website is missing, let us know about that too. Down the road here, we're going to be adding some of our tips to be included in there. And so we are really working to make it a much more appealing and functional website.
Yes, that is our goal, and we are working on it. I'm working on it regularly between that and the Disney Dishes blog. I'm working on improving both every day.
You're doing a great job.
Thank you very much. You can also find our podcast and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're on Podbean. We're on Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and now we are also on iHeartMedia Podcasts. So you can find us there as well. If there's a place where you get podcasts regularly and we're not on it, please contact us. We'd like to find a way to get on that site so you can find us more easily.
Right. We really want to make sure that it's a convenient way for you to get our podcast, and we really appreciate it if you tell a friend about it. And like you said, if you could subscribe, that's awesome too, or review. We want to hear from all of you, and we appreciate feedback from whatever source you can give it to.
Absolutely. We love hearing from all our Hyperion. Wow. Already in this beginning of the show. All our Hyperion adventurers. We love hearing from all of you, and you can find us on social media. We're very active on social media. I'm going to get to that in just a second here. On Twitter, at Hyperion Podcast, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest, at Hyperion Adventures Podcast. And you can always email us if you want to contact us about any reason, Hyperion Adventures Podcast and gmail.com. Now, speaking of social media, we got a thing going on. We ran this morning our hashtag virtual 5K. We were out this morning running for the Run Disney Virtual 5K. If you don't know what that is, they're doing 3 races coming up. It's a series of runs, June, July, August, all revolving around a different Marvel character. This month it was Captain Marvel. I believe next month is Black Panther, and August I think is Iron Man. I'm not sure if I have that in the correct order, but that's how they're going. And we were out running this morning virtually with some other listeners and some other great podcasters and Disney bloggers. We had Jenny from Disney DNA podcast was out there. Tony and his son Sparrow and Stitch from Disney Discussions podcast. Cassie from Disflix and Tidbits podcast, and Nate and Serena from DVC Duo. We were all out having a great time this morning doing our own run. We don't have a date yet for the July run, but we love you to take part either with us in person or virtually. Hashtag it with virtual 5K. We'll find it. We'll retweet it. We'll all have a great time doing this together.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We've talked about in the past how we don't have the Run Disney at Disneyland currently. And so this was a fun way to have something locally that we do, but still share the fun with other people that we've, interacted with on social media. So that was fun. And I'm glad we're doing that and looking forward to the next 2.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun for getting out and running 3 miles in the summer can be, but we had a great time with it, and we got some good pictures, and we have Mickey bars waiting for us as reward, which I found in the store finally after months of looking today. So excited about that. Moving on, we have lots of stuff for you today, including we just talked about a little bit ago our Toy Story 4 spoiler-free review. We're not going to go over spoilers today, maybe in a future episode, not today. We'll also talk a little bit about our second trip to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Yes, Batu 2, Electric Boogaloo. Yes, we got to go for a second visit. We were so blessed that we had the chance to do that. We did that yesterday at the Disneyland Resort, and we'll have details how you can get in yourself. And also, we had the details, or at least the title, for a new Pixar film that's coming out next year. That was kind of a surprise. We weren't expecting 2 Pixar films to be coming out next year. So that's really interesting. So
a lot of fun topics today.
Yes, a lot of fun topics. Let's get to our main topic. As you may know, we are looking back at all the Star Wars films. So let's get to our main topic, which is Star Wars Remembered, Solo, a Star Wars Story.
I've been running scams on the street since I was 10. I was kicked out of the flight academy for having a mind of my own. I'm gonna be a pilot. Best in the galaxy.
Hey, kid. I'm putting together a crew. You in?
That's yes.
I might be the only person. Who knows what you really are?
What's that?
Get ready.
Thought we were in trouble there for a second, but it's fine. We're fine.
So yes, we're continuing our series, Star Wars Remembered, Solo, a Star Wars Story. If you didn't catch this early on, we obviously started this series because we were building up to what is the end of the Skywalker saga, which will be, of course, the Rise of Skywalker coming up in December. And we originally were trying to decide if we wanted to do just the Skywalker movies or all the movies. And you out there, we ran a poll and you said, yes, do them all, do them in chronological order. So that brings us to where we are now, Solo, a Star Wars Story. Now, it's funny that this is the most recent film that came out. So,
Right?
we're going to have to deal with that. So if you haven't seen Solo, a Star Wars Story, we're going to be all over spoilers in this. So, it's been out for over a year. We're sorry, but if you want to go ahead and skip ahead, that's fine. Excuse me. But we want to make sure and touch on this. And the next 2 are actually going to be 2 of the most recent movies, which are going to be interesting as we go through this. But anyway, we love Solo, a Star Wars Story, and we know our good friend Rob LaBarre from the Jedi Temple Archives Podcast enjoyed Solo, a Star Wars Story as well. And he joins us right now as we go through this Star Wars Remembered series. How you doing, Rob?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys. And I was a little bit confused, I think, because you said you were going to have me on to review Star Wars Solo, and I thought it was just going to be me all by myself.
Just you, Han.
All right. Well, I'm just going to take
Solo.
a nap now then and go for it, Rob.
A long time ago.
Here we go. So this film, I think we all enjoyed it, even though this movie kind of struggled at the box office, and we'll get into that more, reasons why that happened. But I think we all enjoyed this film more than some of the critics even, or definitely what the box office showed. I think you would agree with me, Michelle.
Right. And, even still to this day on Twitter, you can still see people who hadn't seen it in the theaters now seeing it and kind of like hitting their head saying, why didn't we? It's a good film. And, although I have to admit, the first time I saw it, I had some issues with trying to see him as Han Solo, but ended up really loving it and giving it a second chance. And it's one of the rare movies we went back to.
Yeah.
So,
and
to
the
see
second
it in
time you
theater.
loved it more. And when
Absolutely.
you saw it, and now you've seen it many times in
Yes.
multiple screenings at home, and you really, really enjoy it.
Exactly.
So, Rob, I don't know what your thoughts were on Solo when it first came out.
It wasn't like the most mind-blowing Star Wars film I'd ever seen, but I definitely enjoyed it. It was a fun movie. it's one of those scenarios where you've got an actor that's being asked to play a totally iconic character. And that is a really big ask for anybody, especially when you're dealing with, Han Solo and the way that was portrayed by Harrison Ford. So I thought he did a great job with the character and kind of making it his own. It was a lot of fun. It did have some things that were a little bit tough to swallow for me, but overall, I really enjoyed watching it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there were some missteps in this movie, but overall, it was a fun ride, and we enjoy it very much. So let's just kind of get into the details of this film for those of you who don't know. The film debuted worldwide on May 25th of 2018, so just a little over a year ago, as we just spoke about, came out. Pre-release, the hype for this, it was really an interesting hype because there wasn't a lot of it. The sneak peek TV spot didn't air until February 4th of 2018 in the Super Bowl. And the first official teaser trailer was released the next day on February 5th of 2018. There was a lot of controversy going in as this movie was being released. They fired the director, the original directors, Phil Lord and Christopher Miller. They fired Lucasfilm, fired them in June of 2017 due to, quote, creative differences, end quote, the ever clever creative differences, right?
Absolutely.
Then Ron Howard took over, which always was, you're not going to find much of a bigger name as a director than Ron Howard. Yeah, we were kind of interested when that happened. There were lots of reshoots we heard about. It was estimated that they pushed the budget to at least $275 million, which made this one of the most expensive movies ever made. There was a lot of speculation out there on social media and stuff that the star, Alden Ehrenreich, was struggling with the role, that he really, everybody, there was a lot of talk that he just couldn't pull it off. So people were concerned about that. And of course, we were dealing with the backlash with some of the people that didn't enjoy Episode 8, The Last Jedi. So there was all this mix going into it that really, really made it struggle a bit.
Yeah. I think, like you're saying, all the things that were controversial around that. However, the one shining thing that like you said, was Ron Howard taking over in that. And I think it felt like at that point, you felt comfortable that somebody familiar had this in their hands, right, and that it was going to be at least considered reverent to make sure the things that came out of there would be a good quality product.
Right. Rob, leading into the opening of Solo, A Star Wars Story, what were your thoughts on it?
I'd followed a lot of the issues that they had with Lord and Miller as the original directors. My understanding of it was they were having them do like upwards of 30 takes per scene, which the difference between how they approached the film and how Ron Howard approached it was really that they were trying to put together a film in the editing room, whereas Ron Howard, kind of wanted to have the vision in place and then just shoot the scenes that he knew that he needed. And I almost wonder if all of those retakes that they were doing with the original directors is kind of part of what impacted the confidence level of some of the actors, because it's kind of hard to feel like you're doing a good portrayal if you're being asked to do retake after retake after retake. So it was really interesting because it didn't get, as you mentioned earlier, it really didn't get promoted a whole lot. Mm-hmm. And I think that definitely played into what happened with the kind of poor showing at the box office, as well as like was referenced earlier, there were some issues with The Last Jedi, and I think people were kind of getting a little bit burned out having a Star Wars film every year, if that's even possible. So, I was still excited to go see it. I still wanted to see and kind of judge for myself how I felt. They did portraying the various characters, Han and Lando, etc. So, I was still anticipating it coming out. Right.
Interesting about all those things that both of you said there, as far as Ron Howard stepping in. And I think it's interesting, and you mentioned it, Rob, that maybe the actor's confidence was a little shot after Lord and Miller were in there and making them do take after take after take. One thing Ron Howard is really well known for is how well he works with actors, being a former actor himself, how he gets in one-on-one and can really really helped them along. And it may be no wonder that they brought him in to help move this project along. As far as the film coming out, not only was it, a Star Wars movie every year, this movie came out only 5 months after The Last Jedi came out. They didn't even push it back till like December of 2018. Right. So, which we kind of got to question a little. Wouldn't it maybe have been better, giving them more time to push this back? I don't think they wanted to compete with Mary Poppins coming out, Mary Poppins Returns coming out around that same time. But at the same, I just think it might have been better for this film in general. I don't know what you think, Michelle.
Yeah, I think, I guess so. I mean, maybe because there was already that negativity from The Last Jedi, that they felt something a little bit more light would bring some positivity from the fans back to the movies. I don't know.
Yeah. Now, Rob, you have any thoughts on any of that?
I agree that I think they probably did have some concerns about the Mary Poppins Returns film and kind of impacting the box office for that. Although it's kind of strange because it really doesn't seem like there's necessarily a direct conflict between those two films. It's, in a lot of cases it'd be different audiences, but regardless of what the reasoning was, I think that this was kind of a situation. I know there were some boycott the film movements out there, which I've never really been a fan of regardless. But I think you're right with what you said about Ron Howard. I mean, he definitely is someone who can work with actors. And you contrast that to George Lucas and his ongoing direction of faster and more intense, right?
Right.
Anyone that's going to actually be able to work with a young actor, especially as we said in a scenario where they are being handed a very large task of living up to a legacy character that's been there since the original trilogy, and is really an iconic part of Star Wars, that they have to have someone who's going to help build their confidence.
Right. I completely agree with that. I think that's exactly the tone they took with this. Since we're talking about the actors, let's go ahead and get to the cast of Solo: A Star Wars Story. Alden Ehrenreich, excuse me, I'm going to totally mess up his name every time I say it on this show. Played Han Solo, and he's a relatively unknown actor at this point. Could you have put something more weighty on his shoulders than to have to portray an iconic role that Harrison Ford is known for? It had to be crazy for him.
Right. I mean, and just the issue of his appearance, albeit that he was similar, there are a lot of facial differences, and it was like, knowing that he probably had to realize that too, that, hey, I am trying to portray something that people are so familiar with. I don't have, necessarily all the features physically to meet up with that. Unlike, you're bringing Chewbacca back, but there you're able to make that character look identical to the original. So yeah, I'm sure that weighed on him as well.
Rob, I know we've discussed this both on the Jedi Temple Archives podcast and a couple times within this show here itself. But Alden Ehrenreich's performance as Han Solo, what were your thoughts on it?
It was interesting because I could almost see him progress as the movie went on and kind of gain that confidence, because early in the film, it was a little stiff. It was a little forced, I guess is the best way to put it. But as the film went on, he just got very comfortable with that. He had a lot of the swagger and mannerisms that you would associate with Harrison Ford and his portrayal of Han Solo. So, I thought it worked out great. And again, I think that people who are going to be critical of his portrayal of Han Solo, again, you have to look at the task that he was given, which I don't think many people would have been willing to take on. And I'm glad that they just went with him as himself instead of doing anything with CGI, as we've seen that can actually be done fairly effectively these days. So I like the fact that they just kind of let him own the character and kind of take it on for himself.
Right. I thought actually he pulled off a lot of the mannerisms. Yes. Did he actually look like Han Solo as Harrison Ford's Han Solo? He couldn't really pull that off, and I don't know who could exactly. But as far as some of the ways he would just, have that sly half smile and just a little look out of his eye, and this little lilt to the way he spoke, I thought he pulled off a lot of the mannerisms fairly well throughout this film. And by the end of it, I'm like, I buy it.
Definitely.
And I know you thought the same way. Yeah. You had problems with it to begin with, and then as we moved on, you changed it. Really enjoyed him.
Yeah, I totally changed it. Totally felt like he handled it brilliantly in that. And also in the interactions with Chewie. It was very believable, very comfortable of a relationship of what I felt we already knew. Even though it was just starting, it had that familiarity to it.
Agreed. Let's go down through some of the rest of the cast here. Some really, as sort of unknown as Alden Ehrenreich was, there were some big names that were in this movie. Woody Harrelson, who's been around since Cheers,
Yes.
takes on as kind of Han Solo's mentor, Tobias Beckett. Emilia Clarke, who all of us Game of Thrones fans know very well as the Queen of Dragons, played Kira. Donald Glover played Lando Calrissian, and I thought he was great as Lando. It was really good casting. There were some struggles, I think, with some of the writing of it, but I actually thought that he was really on top of the game, and I really think I could buy him as a young Lando Calrissian. I don't know what you think, Michelle.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, when I first heard it announced, it was like, oh yeah, that makes sense, but like at first there was some parts to it that were, I don't know if you call them clunky or whatever, that it's like really, and I just finally had to tell the voice in my head to stop, critiquing it and saying, is that what, Lando would have said, and just appreciated the character.
Yeah. Rob, do you have any thoughts on Donald Glover as Lando Calrissian?
I think you and I have talked again quite a bit about this, and my initial impression was he was a little too oily, I guess, for me. But again, in the conversations we've had, you made the point that, a younger Lando Calrissian, a little less refined, probably was going to come off that way anyway. So again, I didn't have any major issues with it. Really, the only part of his story arc that was just weird was the whole droid romance thing. Again, I mean, I'm all for being PC, but now we're being PC about things that aren't even really a thing, right? So that was interesting. But no, I liked his character. You kind of saw that relationship between him and Han, right?
Yeah.
He even went with the
he kept calling him Han. Yeah.
Han. So I love that they brought that back, from Billy D. Williams and his portrayal of Lando, and kind of stuck with that throughout the film as kind of his little jibe between he and Han Solo. So, they did a lot of cool little things with them, subtle little things. His cape closet was awesome.
Yes.
I know. So, totally jealous.
I actually had I had someone who was saying, well, when Han met up with Kira in the closet where she kept her capes, and I'm like, no.
Her cape.
That wasn't her closet. That was Lando's closet. So.
Well, that's one of the things also about it. That's how tricked out the Millennium Falcon was when Lando owned it. It was so funny. I got a wet bar over here, and the escape pod up front in between the mandibles, and it was just interesting. Going through some of the rest of the cast here, and another name I'm going to totally screw up here is Jonas Suotamo, who played Chewbacca. I'm probably butchered that, but
no, you nailed it. Actually,
that was the first time that he played Chewbacca all the way through a Star Wars film. So, and I thought he played him really well, and the mannerisms similar to the late great Peter Mayhew had done. I thought he was great. We just talked about L337. That was Phoebe Waller-Bridge who played that. Paul Bettany plays Dryden Voss, kind of the bad guy, kind of the crime lord in this, although we learn later on that there's a crime lord above the crime lord, of course. Thandie Newton played Val, who I felt it was disappointing that we only got a small piece of her, because I thought she was really interesting character. And okay, this is going to be, like I said, we're going to have spoilers here. When she dies, she sacrifices herself. It just missed the mark to me that, there should have been some more emotional impact there, and the reasons why she sacrificed herself, and I just thought that it completely lost in that because we didn't have enough backstory on her. I don't know what you think, Michelle.
Yeah, I think so too. And I like you're saying, it missed some backstory. It missed some, what was you really then felt like? Well, she was seeing this as a big cause, whereas everything else surrounding that mission is more being, they were hired hands to do this job. And so it was kind of it didn't, like you're saying, it missed it. It didn't make sense.
Rob, do you have any thoughts on that moment?
I'm just so happy that you said what you've said, because I thought I was going to be the pariah here. But yeah, I mean, I love Thandie Newton. I'm a big fan of Westworld. She's been a huge part of that series. And, she's clearly an amazing actress. So it felt like she was totally underutilized in this film. And as you said, they never really managed to develop the kind of connection between her and Beckett, which is Woody Harrelson's character in this particular film. They're supposed to be, totally in love and everything. And her death really doesn't resonate with him, even in the film. He kind of shrugs it off pretty quickly. So, and the other thing is, the way that they killed her off wasn't really anything that you would call a strong female character death in this particular film, because she kind of died in a pointless way. So, kind of sacrificing herself for a heist that didn't even get pulled off anyway. So it was just, it was kind of one of the clunky parts of the movie that didn't connect with me. And as you said, there was really no emotional resonance to her being killed off, because even the characters on screen seemed to move along pretty quickly.
Yeah, I felt that like there was something else there that really needed explaining. I really believe that they probably had something in mind and wanted to develop it more, but for whatever reason, it just never came across. It didn't come across in editing. I don't know. I didn't see it anywhere in any of the deleted scenes or anything, but it seems like there should have been a reason why she decided to sacrifice herself, why it was so important that they needed to get this job done, and it just completely whiffed to me. And that's unfortunate, because like I said, we all agree that for the most part it's a decent movie, but things like that are really what kept it from being a great movie in many regards. A couple other members of the cast: Jon Favreau, a great turn as Rio Durant. Even his death meant more to me than Val's, which was interesting.
I was just gonna say that.
We got a little more from him and a little more life out of him, and he was fun. And another interesting character that only has a really small part in it, at least as FaceTime, but Erin Kellerman as Emphas Nest. I thought in the small piece you got of her, she was very intriguing, and I want to see more from her. I don't know what you think, Michelle.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, she just seemed like everything that she embodied so much of what you'd want to see in a character like hers and what she was trying to do. But I mean, she had the look, she had the finesse, and the humbleness. I mean, she just had so many. You could tell with so little, like you're saying, so little FaceTime, how impressive of a character she was.
I thought she just looked like a perfect part as the start of the rebellion of like what you would see as this is just starting to get from ground level. I don't know what you think, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, I liked her character. I thought she did a great job. It was interesting, though, they kind of, the way that they lay that in at the end of the film, it kind of makes it sound like the rebellion is really more against the cartels, the syndicates that are starting up, as opposed to the empire itself. I get that they're talking kind of about the vacuum that was created by the empire, and that's kind of what the syndicates filled in. But I like the character, and I think it's cool that they've kind of tied that in a little bit to the origin story for the rebellion itself.
Yeah, agreed. Hope we can see more of that somewhere, whether it be a sequel to this or some other standalone film, or just making some appearances in some other Star Wars story films or whatever. But enjoyed it. So we've already gone through some of this, but we'll just go ahead and go through the synopsis a little bit. The film follows much of the early life of Han Solo, starting as an orphan who is stealing and working deals basically just to survive. And of course, we learn how he met his best friend and co-pilot Chewbacca, his connection with Lando Calrissian, and how he came to possess the Millennium Falcon. And we witnessed some critical moments that would shape him into the lovable smuggler that we would see in other Star Wars films. Again, it's not a perfect film. We just talked about Val's character, just completely missed the mark there. I would have liked a little, I know that it was part of the mystery of Kira as well, but I felt that her character, there needed to be some sort of more meat behind her too, and how we got to where we are. And I know that's supposed to be mystery. Maybe that was something that was going to be discovered more if they had made a Solo 2, or if they do make a Solo 2. But I just felt like I needed a little bit more meat out of that character, Michelle.
Well, I don't know. I actually think the mystery was probably I think it served it well. Sometimes I think if they give you too much, that's where some of the disappointments could fall. I mean, like, oh, why would that have been enough for a character to do this or that? And I think keeping it mysterious lets you just believe in what she went through, and you just knew it had to been, outrageously uncomfortable, and where she was in what her role was.
Now, you read a little bit of the novelization of this, right? So you have a little bit more of the backstory, correct?
Yeah, a little bit more of that. Not, although it didn't go into a whole lot. Same kind of mystery in the book as there was in the movie. I don't think they were trying to define all of that. That I really noticed.
Okay, Rob, any thoughts on Kira?
I liked her character. I do think that there's that big gap between when she gets captured at the starport on Corellia there, where she gets separated from Han, and then when he kind of rediscovers her as part of Crimson Dawn. That would be interesting to get some of that backstory, as you were pointing out. But even without that, there's some really cool twists to her character. I loved her Doc Ondar reference when they're on Dryden Voss's yacht. So, that was kind of cool tying into Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. And then, the mention of Teras Kasi, the fighting style that she uses is kind of a tie back to some of the old Legends material. There's actually so many references to Star Wars Legends material in this film, most of which are in Dryden Voss's office. His collection, which again, that collection I'm sure is somehow supposed to be tied to, his relationship with Doc Ondar as well. So, but in terms of Kira, she is definitely, I kind of see her as what Han might have turned into had he been forced to stay where that on Corellia as part of Lady Proxima's, group.
Right. It's a good point, but both of you make there. I can totally see that as a possibility. So interesting stuff. I also felt, and I know maybe some of you will dispute this, but I thought Lando's role could have been bigger. I thought he was kind of pushed to the wayside in many scenes. The scenes he was on, I thought were good, but I thought that we could have had a little more Lando, and I think it would have maybe improved the film slightly. What do you think, Michelle?
It could have probably have some entertainment value to it, but I don't know if it would have moved the storyline along, and it might have just been
a little clunky.
Right. And we always talk about how they don't a lot of times edit these films enough, and that may have been a distraction more than really helping the storyline.
Yeah, this could be true. Rob, any thoughts on Lando?
I definitely think they could have made more room for him if they would have done away a little bit more with the droid rebellion portion.
Right.
Oh, don't go into that. Don't push that button.
Oh, man. Button push.
I actually, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I felt like they kind of glazed over Han Solo's military career, which I wish they would have fleshed out a little bit more because, there's some cool backstories, at least in Legends, in terms of how he fell out of favor with the Imperial Academy. And there were other things that I thought they could have explored as opposed to some of these other scenes. But I could have handled more Lando. I could have handled more backstory on Han. And given up some of these other things. I did love the fact that you did find out you can boot a starship in this film. So that was pretty awesome.
Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah, the boot was hilarious. So good stuff. So I know I agree with some of the L3 stuff. I liked some of the stuff, but there was some stuff that was just a little too much for me. But Michelle's a droid fan, so I know she's going to fight us on this. So
yes,
go ahead,
I love
Michelle.
L3. Well, there were a lot of things about L3 to like. First of all, just in terms of that they actually filmed it with a person doing that who was about the same size and everything like that, and tried to, from what I've seen, it looks like they tried to not have as much CGI in that, as they could. And I'm kind of contradicting myself because it doesn't necessarily move the storyline there, but I did find it was an interesting relationship with her and Lando. I mean, I think they were both in their own rights kind of misfits, different than their counterparts, and maybe because they saw that in each other, that they saw good things about each other that other people might not have, like
makes sense.
He was kind of, over the top, and I could see where his character wouldn't get along with a lot of people.
Be a little abrasive to people.
Right.
Yeah.
And she was definitely one that would just call it out.
It's very abrasive to people.
Right.
Yeah.
And kind of going along with that whole philosophy of this issue of droids and are they really servants you know, or and I have problems with that philosophically too. So I don't want to go down that path with this right now, but I just did feel like the combination of the two of them made sense, thinking about that fact that they were both misfits in their own right, and you know, kind of got along as a result of that.
I get that. That actually makes sense, but it's still a little tough for me to take. Rob, your thoughts. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just to clarify, I mean, like Luke Skywalker has a very close relationship with R2. I don't have any problem with that. You know, it is a friend, it is a companion to him.
Right.
Much in the same way that, you know, the household dog might be a companion. But, you know, if Luke were having a physical relationship with R2, that would probably be a bridge too far. And that's kind of where they went between L3 and Lando. And I'm like, you know.
Right.
Well, I don't know. You know, the thing about it, though, is that L3 did say that, but there was never any like, okay, they definitely have hooked up, you know?
No, but it was actually stated later by, I can't remember who it was, but that had been kind of asked and answered, and Lucasfilm was basically saying that Lando was, I think they called him omnisexual.
Well, I believe. That for sure. Right. I believe. Yeah.
So I was like, I know he's the you know, ultimate ladies man, but
right.
L3
right. Now that I get. I was thinking just more how they got along, how they worked together, and
pilot and co-pilot, if nothing else, for sure.
Yeah. You saw that with Anakin and R2. I mean, Anakin in the Clone Wars series would, you know, go out of his way to recover R2, and, you know, Luke followed that same path. So, I mean, there are clearly characters that, you know, their droids are more than just, you know, a utility for them.
Right.
It's a part of their extended family, and I have no issue with that.
I'm sure we'll get into a lot of that whenever we get to that droid episode we're going to do on the Jedi Temple Archives podcast.
It's coming.
Although I think I might have scared you off with inviting me on.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We take all opinions. It makes the show.
We'll have some fun with that whenever we get around to that episode, for sure. So moving on, you know, I think what's interesting about this film is there are a lot of great scenes in this film that show the Han Solo that he would become, from where he is as, you know, whatever he is in his young 20s to the older, wiser, late 20s, early 30s Han Solo. Of course, Tobias Beckett was his mentor, and you could tell a lot of the lessons he learned, for good or for bad, were from Tobias Beckett. You know, a lot of the way he reacts to things. Now, don't necessarily trust anyone. Trust yourself and trust anyone else. Of course, you always trust Chewie, but, you know, trust yourself. And of course, at the end, and again, there's another spoiler, so I'm sorry, but we finally get definitive. Lucasfilm says, look, Han shot first, okay? Enough of this discussion. He shoots Tobias Beckett first. He shot Greedo first. You know, no matter what George Lucas wanted to change, Han shot first. Michelle.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I think I agree with you on Beckett being his mentor, although, I don't know, you think of somebody who's an orphan living in the situation he was that we see at the beginning of the film. There's got to be a lot of that. You don't trust anybody, but you might find that one person you do have some faith in, you know, which he had with Kira, and maybe even a little bit with Beckett, you know, I mean, somewhat, you know, but totally, yes, about Han shooting first, and that, you know, he is a survivor. He's not going to let somebody like that take his life when he knows he's at risk for losing his life. And I think in both of those situations, he wasn't dumb. He saw that, okay, these people are possibly going to get me if I don't get them first.
Agreed on that. Rob, your thoughts?
Well, I think that, you know, shooting first was really kind of a psychological reaction to the fact that he was forced to wear what appeared to be acid wash jeans on Corellia. So that's enough to put a little anger in anybody.
Love it.
I got to change my outfit now.
Yeah, it was right. It was interesting though, because, you know, he learned enough from what Beckett said to know that he had to shoot him because Beckett was going to try to get the draw on him. But it was really, I think, Kira flying off in Dryden's yacht at the end of the film. You know, he was still trusting her. And I think that was really what drove the point home that he needed to be very careful in terms of who he trusted, because he thought he could trust her. And, you know, she had another agenda, and she was trying the whole time to let him know that, you know, you don't understand the game that you're playing right now. And he just did not internalize it, I think, until she flew off.
Yeah, I see part of that. I do think that there was many things from Beckett, especially, you even saw it when I always, you're going to, please, Rob, remind me of the chess game. I can never remember the name.
Oh, Dejarik?
Dejarik, thank you. Dejarik, he's there teaching Chewbacca to play Dejarik, Tobias Beckett is, and he tells him, you got to think 3-4 moves ahead.
Right.
And I think that was, that was what played out. That was definitely foreshadowing as what you needed to know going into this. And, it's kind of a Tobias Beckett lesson. I also think Kira nailed down Han in many ways when he said, you want to be the scoundrel, you want to be this, this criminal, but you're always going to be the good guy.
Right.
You're always going to be the good guy. And it played out in this film, and it's played out consistently throughout Star Wars. As he always wants to be this mercenary, be this smuggler or whatever. But when it comes down to it, he's going to do the right thing. And I think that they nailed it right there with Kira. I think you'd agree, Michelle.
I do agree. I think she did nail it in that. As you're saying this, I'm going to really go off on a tangent here and just rein me in or edit post-production if you want.
We're all about tangents here. It's all good.
But, if you think of Han, wasn't he like the guy on Casablanca? He didn't want, he kind of acts like he doesn't really want to be involved and he doesn't want to choose sides.
Rick, right?
Yeah, Rick. Yeah. That he doesn't want to choose sides with a war. He's just in for himself, and yet he does get drawn in. And I think with Han, the same kind of thing happened. He, like you said, he wants to be a scoundrel. He doesn't really want to take sides. He's kind of like, I'm out for myself and, to get what I want. And yet he still sees what he needs to do to help those in need.
Yeah. Well, I don't disagree with you in that regard. And interesting stuff there. Rob, your thoughts?
Yeah, I really got nothing. Michelle had such a good point with Casablanca. My brain just went off on a tangent.
Yeah. You're dreaming about Casablanca. So.
Nicely done, Michelle.
Oh, thank you.
You derailed me from Star Wars.
I'm sorry.
Wow.
I know.
Mark this date down in history. Anyway, let's move on. The critical reception of this film. Rotten Tomatoes gave this film an approval rating of 70%, which is a fairly good rating. Not a great rating, but fairly good. That was based on 442 reviews with an average rating of 6.39 out of 10. The site's critical consensus reads, quote, a flawed yet fun and fast-paced space adventure, Solo a Star Wars story should satisfy newcomers to the saga as well as longtime fans who check their expectations at the theater door, end quote. I think that's a very, very accurate statement from Rotten Tomatoes. Michelle, don't you think so?
I do, especially if you're just going to the theater and seeing it once, maybe twice. More and more that I've watched it, and notice relationships, and maybe I'm just putting into my own brain what I'm seeing, but it just seems a lot deeper than I first thought of this movie. I thought of it as a great date movie. Mm-hmm. And now I when I look at the relationships, especially with Han and Chewie and Han and Kira and everybody, and how things formulated and came out, I actually thought it had a lot more depth than I initially gave it credit.
Yeah, interesting. Rob, your thoughts?
Well, my first thought is that Rotten Tomatoes is apparently using Common Core math, because the last time I checked, 6.39 does not, out of 10 does not round up to 70%, unless you're Han Solo talking about the
Kessel
true.
Run. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, you round down with the Kessel
right.
Run. Yes,
right, exactly. So they apparently use a similar rounding technique. But no, I would have to say I would knock 2 stars off just for them following The Last Jedi and using the concept of hyperfuel. I was totally fine in Star Wars without talking about gas. So that, seeing spaceships stall out because they ran out of fuel is that's bringing it around too close to home. So, but no, I almost wonder if part of the hit in the rating that was given by Rotten Tomatoes had to do with all of the kind of bad PR that it got with them having to let go of the original directors and bring in Ron Howard, and all the talk of reshoots and taking the actors and sending them to acting classes, etc. I almost feel like some of that kind of weighed on their minds when they scored this. I felt like it was a solid BB plus. And as Michelle said, it's definitely a fun movie, but there are deeper undertones to a lot of it that would be a lot of fun to explore.
Right.
I give it a solid B. I think there are some things that really keep it from moving up. But, if you just want to go in there, and that's why I think that their description, their consensus was perfect. It's that if you go in, and yes, I agree with you. If you on other viewings, as you watch it more, you can pick out some more nuance to it. But your first viewing, maybe even your second viewing of this film, if you go in there and don't expect to be this groundbreaking film that's going to be an Oscar winner or is going to change the universe or, whatever, if you just go in there and look for a heist film that's going to be fun, I thought it actually pulled it off for the most part in that. And that's why I enjoyed the movie personally. So I don't know. What do you think, Michelle?
Yeah, I think I would say the same thing. It was enjoyable if you go in there with the right frame of mind, that it's not going to be a groundbreaking film.
Right.
It's not part of the, trilogies.
Agreed. Well, unfortunately, and we talked about this a little bit already, Solo: A Star Wars Story grossed only $213.8 million in the United States and Canada and $179.1 million in other territories for a total worldwide gross of $392.9 million. That put it well under what it needed to do to break even in the theater anyway. We already talked about the estimated budget of at least $275 million. That means the film needed to gross at least $500 million worldwide to break even. So this is considered the first ever Star Wars bomb at the box office. It did rally a bit on video and streaming releases, which is good to hear. And I think people kind of realize maybe we missed out on what was a pretty good movie. I don't know what you think, Michelle.
Yeah, I agree. And being on social media, that I see the same thing. And now with a lot of people promoting, Solo 2, I don't think there would have been that momentum if people didn't like it.
Right. Rob?
Yeah, again, I feel like there was kind of a movement after Last Jedi where people were just deciding that they were going to make a financial statement to Disney, that they were unhappy with the way that the films were headed. And I think that, Solo was really the recipient of that angst, I guess. Because I don't think there was anything about the film that really justified it being, getting those kind of box office numbers.
Agreed. I completely agree with that. I think, like I said before, and I really think that they released it too soon after The Last Jedi. The vocal minority out there that really blasted The Last Jedi, I think it was still echoing for just a few months afterwards. I think if they had been able to push it back to November, December, maybe that might have died off a little bit. We get through some of this other talk and you actually have some more time to develop the storyline. I just think it may have improved the box office. But like I said, the good news is that through, Blu-ray, DVD, streaming purchases, it has rebounded, and now we have the push. We had it just a little over a month ago. There was the big push of make Solo 2 happen. It got a lot of run out on social media. We are firmly behind it, so I was glad to see that out there, and I know you just mentioned it, Michelle.
Yeah, definitely. And I think people were satisfied with Ron Howard handling it, and considering if he would be invited back for that.
Rob, how do you stand on make Solo 2 happen?
I would totally be behind make Solo 2 happen and make Solo 3 happen, because I think they were originally planning on a trilogy. So I think they did a good job of selling the characters that they were asked to recreate. And I think there's a lot of content for them to explore there. There were numerous Han Solo and Lando Calrissian books that were part of Legends, and they were always good stories. It's kind of interesting to get those storylines that don't really have the Force users in them, where you kind of get the scoundrel aspects. So I think that that's definitely an untapped part of the whole Star Wars canon that I would like to see rebuilt.
Yeah, completely agree. I'm really hoping they get past this, financial bomb status that it had, and they work. Because I really believe they left some things off. They left some things open and hanging in this film that are ready to be answers and ready to be explored. And I really think this movie, actually, the legacy of this film might be improved by a Solo 2 or a Solo 3, as you mentioned, Rob. I think you could agree with that.
Yeah, especially if they're able to, pick a director and stick with them and go into it. I mean, I would love to see Gareth Edwards get another Star Wars movie. We'll talk about that more when we get to Rogue One.
Next month.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's very reassuring to know that we have people like Michael Giacchino in the wings. Because obviously we've got John Williams kind of getting up there, and I don't know how much longer he'll be creating Star Wars music. So definitely the legacy that was created is in good hands with some of these people that they've had working on these Star Wars films.
Sure.
Completely agree. So let's move on to just some fun facts. Michelle, do you have any fun facts?
Well, I guess the one fun fact that I came up with was that it was a father and son duo writing the screenplay for this.
Right. Yes, the Kasdans.
Yeah. Larry and John. So I thought that, and I've heard some, of their interviews and how what you would expect is a struggle of, a father and a son working together, but that those struggles brought their creativity to it. Elevated their creativity. So I thought that was a fun fact.
Well, it is a fun fact. And the interesting thing about that is that George Lucas actually planned to do a solo standalone movie. And that's when he brought Lawrence Kasdan in to start writing it. He moved on and started, once Disney took over Lucasfilm, to start writing The Force Awakens. And it kind of passed on to his son, Jonathan, to write this. And that's why you have the father-son team up on there. So interesting stuff. Yeah. Rob, you have any fun facts about Solo: A Star Wars Story?
Only about a million of them.
I can't wait. I love your fun facts.
All right. So Anthony Daniels had a cameo in this. On Castle, he was one of the humans named Tack in the mines of Castle, who was kind of involved with that uprising. We had Warwick Davis, who once again played his face character as part of Enfys Nest group of rebels there. And interestingly enough, he was credited as Weasel in the credits, which is the same character that he was credited as playing in The Phantom Menace when he was seen with Watto betting on the pod race. So he is actually the same character in both of those films.
Wow.
We had the reference to Bosk, the Trandoshan lizard-like bounty hunter that we see in Empire Strikes Back. Obviously, we've talked about the fact that Darth Maul makes an appearance. Which
I don't think we did, actually. That was one thing. That was the one spoiler we hadn't given out, but I have no problem with it. But
right.
Darth Maul does make an appearance in this film. Part of the things why we need to make Solo 2 happen.
Right. And I mean, for people who don't follow the animated series and weren't aware that, his bisected tumble down the shaft at the end of The Phantom Menace was not the end of his story, that was probably a bigger surprise. I know there were people who kind of thought that maybe Boba Fett was going to make an appearance. But we do get, Mandalorian armor and Dryden Voss's collection, so to speak. So, and then the other character that really jumped out at me was Edrio Two Tubes, who is basically Saw Gerrera's right-hand man in Rogue One. Yeah, the alien creature with the, kind of mechanical eyes and the tube mask. It's believed that is the same character. He actually has an identical twin that it could be, but I think the going assumption is that it's actually him in this particular film.
Yeah, it'd be unlikely that they brought in someone his identical twin when everybody would first respond to that is the character from Rogue One.
Right. The planet Mimban, where we see Han Solo kind of in his role as the Imperial Infantry, was actually a planet that was part of a book that came out after the original Star Wars film called Splinter of the Mind's Eye, where Luke and Leia are after what's called the Kyber Crystal, which was like a Force item. So it was kind of cool to see that planet get recreated within canon, since that had been kind of pushed into Legends. Right. And they also reference the Pike Syndicate, which is the group, the criminal group that was responsible for killing Jedi Master Sifo Dyas, the Jedi who actually was the one that had put in the order for the Grand Army of the Republic in the Attack of the Clones and the prequel film. So that was kind of cool. They referenced the Maw as they're kind of coming out of Kessel. actually going and coming. And the Maw was actually in Legends the site of an Imperial installation, like super top secret Imperial installation, where the Death Star prototype was created, and the first Death Star, as well as a number of other kind of super weapons that Grand Moff Tarkin had set up. And then, oh boy, what else do we have? The one thing that maybe not a lot of people know was also in Legends. You hear C-3PO in, I believe it's Empire Strikes Back, talking about how the Falcon has a peculiar dialect.
Right.
Peculiar dialect. Again, words I can't say right now. And in Legends, it was supposed to be made up out of 3 different droid brains. One was an R3 series astromech droid, one was a V5 transport droid, and then there was a slicer droid brain. So kind of them working L3's navigation, her brain into the Falcon's computer as kind of the navigation core, plays a little bit into that backstory.
Right.
And then the other stuff was really all in Dryden Voss's collection. So there's the large triangle device that you see there that's believed to be a Sith holocron, although it's kind of hard to believe that Darth Maul would let him have that.
Right.
True.
It seems like he would have kind of taken that for himself.
Right.
The Mandalorian armor that I already mentioned. There's a bunch of different references and the items in that room to various Star Wars Legends stories, which are kind of fun for people who, read all those. But the coolest one for me was that the idol from Raiders of the Lost Ark that, Indy replaces with the bag of sand is sitting on that. So there's always this back and forth between Spielberg and Lucas where they kind of work references to each other's films in their films. And that is still being carried on, which is really cool.
Yeah, there were so many interesting knickknacks that I pick out every single time we see Dryden Voss's office, lounge, whatever you want to call it. That I find it very, very fascinating. So those are great facts. My facts are much more superficial than your deep facts you got there, Rob. I got things like, did you know that they made 30 different capes for Lando's cape room? I actually thought there were more, but they said they made 30 different capes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe they made
I thought there were more
duplicates of some of them. I don't know, but there was only 30 capes made. You already referenced one of these, Rob. There were 2 references that I can remember to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge when this film. Of course, you mentioned Kira talking about asking a server to make sure that Doc Ondar is taken very well care of, and L3 also mentions that you couldn't get to Black Spire without me as they're walking up at one point, which is it was fun for those of us who have either been or are anticipating Galaxy's Edge either way. The working title of the film I thought was fun. The working title of the film was Red Cup, as in Red Solo Cup. I thought that was kind of clever. This is the first Star Wars film where the Jedi are never mentioned once. The word Jedi is never spoken in it. It's kind of interesting in that regard. So anyway, those are my fun facts. As far as legacy of this film.
Well, can I go back to one thing that Rob said?
Yeah, go ahead.
I had to look it up as you were talking, but Larry Kasdan was the writer of Raiders of the Lost. Right, that too, but Raiders of the Lost Ark. So you're saying that there was some things there in the room.
Definitely crossover.
Yeah,
right, no question. Yeah, so interesting stuff.
One other real quick thing about Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is just kind of a funny side story, that when Spielberg and Lucas had their first kind of get together, and I believe it was on a beach in Hawaii to talk about kind of how they wanted to approach Raiders, and they basically said, who do we want to have do the music for it? And they decided it was going to be John Williams, and then they said, all right, well, that pretty much takes care of it. The rest is just details. So it's just a testament to how important John Williams was to basically selling the emotion in these films.
Yeah. Right. Boy, we're going to miss him in these films. So one of these days when he finally calls it quits, which looks like he's calling it quits for Star Wars films after Rise of Skywalker. But
I will tell you next month why you don't have to worry about that when we talk about Michael Giacchino and Rogue One, because there's some really cool information there too. So.
I do love Michael Giacchino's take on that influence from John Williams for sure in Rogue One. So that's good news. So as far as the legacy of this film, I think it's way too early to tell, and we'll have to see if there are sequels. Again, we're still # make Solo 2 happen. So we'll see what happens with that. But all in all, I think we've said it many times. We agree. It's a better film than it is rated. It's a better film than the box office showed. And if you haven't seen it, and we haven't completely spoiled it for you at this point, you should go see Solo. Don't you agree, Michelle?
Absolutely. And I think even though we might have spoiled it for somebody who might not have seen it, that it's still an enjoyable film. And I don't think we've given away everything. I mean, and how things play out.
Right. Yeah, even if we have given away some things, I'm one that even if I get a spoiler, I want to see how that spoiler happens. Right. Rob, your thoughts on the legacy of Solo?
Yeah, I mean, I think eventually it's going to be given a better shake than it did when it first came out because, again, I think that the whole the directorial issues that they had with it initially kind of weighed on it a little bit, and I think that's going to fade pretty quickly. People are just going to associate it with Ron Howard. And again, as we've got an entire generation of people that really didn't grow up watching the original trilogy Han Solo. They saw maybe the prequel trilogy first, or maybe even for younger kids that came in during the sequels. And the way they remake movies nowadays, how many Spider-Mans have we had? How many times have various films been remade with new actors? And I think that maybe as a society, we're just kind of able to make that leap a little bit easier than we used to be. So I don't really think that it's going to be anything that it's going to be a long-term weight hanging around the shoulders of this particular film. And I think that, again, it's an entertaining film. So I think people if they're just looking for some mindless fun, they're going to be able to sit down and watch this and really enjoy it.
Agreed. Absolutely. Completely agreed. So those are our thoughts, our Star Wars Remembered on Solo, A Star Wars Story. We'd love to hear what you thought about the film. If you haven't seen it, and if you do go check it out, let us know what you think. Feel free to contact us. Rob, we really appreciate you joining us once again for our Star Wars Remembered series. Next time, we are looking to one of our favorite films. I know it's one of Rob's, and it's going to be, yes, Rogue One, Yay! A Star Wars Story. And that's exciting. I know you're excited about that, Michelle.
Absolutely.
I know. How about Rob? You looking forward to that one?
Set aside 3 hours for that episode.
Exactly. So, of course, Rob is the host of the Jedi Temple Archives Podcast. Rob, please tell our listeners how they can listen, how they can subscribe, and how they can follow you on social media.
Absolutely. Yeah. We can pretty much be found on any podcast platform, depending on where you prefer to listen to your podcast. If you listen to podcasts on a particular application and you can't find the Jedi Temple Archives Podcast, just drop us a line at jtapodcast@gmail.com and let me know, and I will make sure that we get it out there. And we can also be found on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, on Instagram, and on Pinterest at JTA Podcast. So we'd love to hear from you. If you have ideas for shows, please shoot those along. And if you enjoy the show, definitely give us a review and tell a friend, and that will help grow our listenership.
Yeah, and it is a really great show. We've talked about it many times, but it's a show that, if you're a real Star Wars fan, you'll enjoy it. If you're kind of that fringe Star Wars fan that doesn't know everything about it, Rob doesn't talk down to you, whereas we've known that about many Star Wars fans. They kind of like, oh, you didn't know that? Well, I can't be in the same room with you. Well, that's definitely not the way that Rob approaches his show. I think you would agree, Michelle.
Absolutely. And it's very entertaining. And, like I always say, I always come out knowing more and feeling better appreciation, whether it's watching the movies or just thinking of the characters or whatever. So awesome podcast to listen to.
Yes. And plus, Rob and his wife are two of our very best friends that we really enjoy having time with. And we're looking forward to connecting here when you get out to Disneyland here in just a few months.
I am just counting down the days. I want to get into Galaxy's Edge. I want to meet up with you guys. And we'll see how it shakes out. Samesies. Yes. And I promise, both in person and on the podcast, I won't make you feel like a jerk.
Yay!
Exactly.
Oh, gosh.
We've already hashtagged it or, typed it, the tagline for it. The Star Wars podcast that doesn't make you feel like a jerk.
I still get red.
I know, but it's so cute. You love it. It's so funny. It's perfect.
As my parents used to say, he only does it because he loves you.
That's right.
It's perfect. It's perfect. So, Rob, thanks again, and we'll look forward to talking with you again next month in regards to Rogue One.
Always a pleasure. Thank you guys for having me, and we will talk soon.
Awesome.
All right. So thanks again to Rob LaBarre of the Jedi Temple Archives Podcast. We really enjoy his show, and I hope that you enjoy it as well if you're a Star Wars fan, or even just a little bit of a Star Wars fan. I really think you will.
Right. And if you're planning to hit Galaxy's Edge and you don't feel like you really know Star Wars, that's the place to really start, because you're going to get a lot of great information. You can do that as well as watching the films and be really immersed in Galaxy's Edge.
Agreed. And that's, speaking of Galaxy's Edge, we talked about it at the open of the show. Yes, we were blessed, lucky enough, that we were able to do a second visit to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at the Disneyland Resort. We got the reservation months ago, and it just worked out schedule-wise for us. So yes, we visited on Saturday, June 22nd. We had the 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. window. We got to do some new stuff that we haven't done in the past. We got to redo some stuff we had already done on our first visit, but it was it was a great day at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. I think you'd agree, Michelle.
I definitely agree. And I definitely want to appreciate Disney, that they really did take into consideration people's feedback from their experiences. I mean, we saw that throughout our visit yesterday, how much better it was, how much easier it was to do things compared to day 2, which obviously you would expect to see. But yeah, they definitely listened to people and made some very quick changes to make it a better experience.
Right. So they had, what they did was they realized what the two most popular things outside of course, Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run that people would want to go to. So as you're in the staging area waiting to get in, they told you right off the bat, go with this person. They're going to lead you to Savi's workshop, which a lot of people wanted to go to, and there was always a line for, and you needed to get a return time for that. The other was to go to Oga's Cantina, the same thing. You needed a return time, as opposed to when we went the first time to Oga's Cantina. We haven't tried Savi's workshop, but when you went to Oga's Cantina, there was this, you had to wait in a queue, and it would open, it would close. It took a lot of time to get in there. It really kind of messed with your day a little bit. Matter of fact, it took a good hour out of our day at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge just trying to get into Oga's Cantina. But they did it completely differently this time. You went up there, you got in, you told them how many people were in your party. Only one of you had to go to begin with. They gave you a return time ticket, and then you just got back in the queue at that time. And it only took us about 10 minutes, I think, from that point to get in.
Exactly. Yeah, it actually kind of worked like a paper fast pass. And so I think, because they've done well with that, they were able to apply that to this situation. And you're right, it was a totally better experience. The first time we went to go into the line. They said 45 minutes. We thought that was too extensive. So we came back and the line wasn't open. So we were actually kind of in the background waiting for the line to open just to get back into line.
Wait another 45 minutes in the line.
45 minutes to an hour, yeah. So, I mean, we lost a lot of our 4 hours in the first time visit trying to get into Oga's Cantina.
Right. So it was good to see that they had learned from what happened. I think they learned early on. I had a tip the first week of how to go about doing that, and they completely went out the window because they changed their process right away, which is good. I'm glad they're learning from this. And I think you're going to find that many times with Star Wars Galaxy's Edge over the next few months, is that they're going to find out a lot at how to handle it at the Disneyland Resort, and Walt Disney World Resort has their eyes on this and is trying to figure out exactly how they want to handle it out there once that opens up on August 29th as well.
Right. I mean, one of the big things that we notice is in terms of the point of entry, pulling the crowds away from the Disneyland portion and getting them in that queuing area, or staging area, an area that served as a staging area, as opposed to having people come in from all the entrances. And I know that here in California, they have 3 entrances, whereas in Florida, they'll only have 2 entrances. So, I mean, right now they were able to manage those large crowds, of a big influx all of a sudden, where it's not a trickle in. It'll be interesting to see how it works after this. Right.
It's going to be really interesting to see now, because the reservation now ends tomorrow. Probably for most of you that are listening to this, it's already ended. So it's going to be interesting to see how things change. What we're talking about now is going to probably be completely different now that the reservation system there is ending, and that we're going to be boarding groups and some other things. We're going to go over a few details of that coming up here when we get to the Disney stories of the week. But let's talk a little bit about what we got to do because of the fact that we weren't waiting in line for Oga's Cantina for as long, or waiting to get in line for Oga's Cantina. We were able to do Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run twice, which was awesome. We were so excited. We got to play as gunners this time for the first time, and we got to be pilots again the second time, and that was great. I think we did great.
Absolutely. And although it's you think, oh gosh, I got to be the pilot or it's going to be a disappointment. It really isn't. No. Being the gunner was a lot of fun, and you had a different experience, a different focus. So we haven't played the engineer yet.
No.
So
we'd like to try that at some point.
Right, right. But as you're hearing the instructions, I know the engineers were having to do a lot of things too. Mm-hmm. So. But it was fun, and it's fun to see how you did compared to your other mission in terms of your points and what you've accomplished. So it's an all around great ride.
Yeah,
sure.
We really enjoyed it. It's so much fun. It's just I'm a lover of video games in general, and it's an attraction and a video game at the same time, and it's a lot of fun. And plus, you're flying the Millennium Falcon, and it's really interesting. I still think I haven't tried engineer yet, but I would love to be the pilot more often because I think the pilot is just such a cool place to be, and you see much more in control of things. But that's not to say that all the roles aren't great and that they're all vital to what happens as a crew.
Right, exactly. But I really enjoyed being the gunner. I'm not saying I would want to just replicate that.
Because you beat me. You were a better gunner than I was.
Although it was funny, I had more points but less accuracy percentage, which is totally opposite of what
we are for Midway Mania, which is hilarious. So that was great. So we got to try that twice because of that. We went in there. We as soon as we checked in for Oga's Cantina and got our return time, we were able to look up. We were one of the first groups to get in there. Like we since we had the history and we'd already done it, we kind of knew where to be and how to get into the earliest group in the staging part, and so we were able to get in there early. Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run was still down to 15 minutes, so we were able to jump right in that right away. Went and did a couple other things, went back to Oga's Cantina, and then later on as the line shrunk again down to 20 minutes, we went on it again. Actually got to see a little more of the queue, which was interesting.
Right,
a little more time in the queue. But that was a lot of fun. We also, I personally tried out the Ronto Roasters. I tried the Ronto wrap, which was, I loved it. It was, it's basically a fancy hot dog, but it's a nice spicy sausage. It has a little peppercorn sauce to give it a little spice, but it's cooled down with this coleslaw, and it's got like kind of this pita or flatbread wrap around it. It really is good, and I really enjoyed it. It was easy to eat and just walk around with. It's a nice handheld dish, and great thing to have if you just want to grab something quickly and explore Star Wars Galaxy's Edge.
Right, exactly. I mean, and I think that was when you're talking about food, that was the one thing I think we experienced because the time frame that we were going in there, 11 to 3, that's when most people are going to be looking for some kind of lunch. So we actually, I think, experienced more lines with that than some of the other issues or other things that we were going to see because people were in line to go eat. You could do mobile ordering. The return time for mobile ordering was a little bit inconvenient for us for what some of the other things we were doing. So that is an option, and it's going to be, definitely beneficial for people. But that was a funny coincidence that it was like it was going to take longer to get our lunch than it was to get on Smuggler's Run.
Yeah, that was funny. It's interesting stuff. The other thing we got to do is we got to finally go use the Play Disney app for some of the different games and hacks and different things you can do throughout there.
You're welcome, Resistance.
Yes. But we barely scratched the surface of that. We did a couple things, but there is so much to do involving with the Play Disney app. And we didn't do it the first time around, but the second time around we did the Millennium Falcon. I had it on, and yes, we got 7,800, I think, credits deposited into our account for a fairly successful mission. So there's so much stuff that you can do there and check out. And I was telling Rob this off the air a little bit ago, and Rob LaBarre, who we just talked with about Star Wars Remembered, that we've now been there twice, and yes, we're blessed to have been there twice, but I love that land so much. It's so great. There's so much to do. There's so much to look at. There's so much to experience. Right. It's amazing. When you get in there, you're going to love it. Whether it be coming up here at the Disneyland Resort or coming up here at the end of August at the Walt Disney World Resort, there is so much to explore and enjoy that you're just going to be blown away by it. I think you'd agree, Michelle.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of details. Hidden Mickeys, very creative ways of bringing, and I know we only saw a few, and I know there's got to be tons more. But like you're saying with the Play Disney Parks app, a lot of fun things to do there. If you plan to use your mobile device for that, though, you probably will need something to recharge it because it does consume a lot of battery, but it's a lot of fun, and especially considering that, if you're looking at this land, right now it only has one attraction to go into, even though there's a lot of other things to see and do. That gives you an outlet to have some more activities within that land to keep you really busy throughout the day.
Yeah, it's really fun. And yes, and that's true of the Play Disney app in many regards. No matter where you're using it in the park, it will eat up your battery. So be prepared to have some sort of backup charger or a way to get your phone recharged because it will eat it up quickly. But we had a great time. Absolutely.
And the other thing and I was rethinking today about our experience because it was just so much fun. But one of this is kind of a hokey girly thing to say, but what I also really liked is when we were done there. Yeah, it's a great land, and it was so much fun, and it's always sad when of course the way they're doing it right now, where you have a time frame that you can't exceed. That was like, oh, we got to leave here. But then you walk out and you're at Disneyland and you're seeing things in Fantasyland and Tomorrowland and stuff. And it's like, well, this is fun too.
Yeah. It is true.
So it was a fun transitioning out, even though we had to say goodbye to Galaxy's Edge. It's fun to leave there and go right into another different world.
But to your point, which is interesting as well, is that it just goes to show you how immersive this land is that you almost forget that you're in Disneyland.
Yes.
And so when you leave the park and then all of a sudden, oh, that's right. It's right here.
Right.
All this stuff that we love. Just another credit to the people who developed this and how they wanted to do it and how good it is. So really enjoyed it. We're looking forward to hearing all of your experiences once you get to enjoy it as well. And if you want any pointers, I don't know if we have a lot of pointers because things are going to so dramatically change coming up here with the reservation system going down, but we would be happy to share anything we can with you if you want to contact us.
Right. I mean, and kind of similar to what we've said when we went the prior time is that you don't want to miss going through the shops, through Merchants Row, and it's not like other Disney shops. You're not going to find things there that are Disney-esque. It's very much Galaxy's Edge, and that's where you're at. But it's fun to see the unique things, the decor that they use, things that look alive and move around, and the cast members, how really into it that they are. It just makes the whole experience that much more enjoyable. So, even if you're not planning to buy anything, it's fun just to go through Merchants Row. But we did see, yes, obviously there's going to be things that are super expensive that, you'll drool over. But there's also things that are, more moderately priced that if you wanted to have some kind of a souvenir from that area, you're going to be able to walk out and not, break the bank.
Yeah, completely agree. You can go either way with it. You can break the bank there. Believe me, I saw plenty of people breaking the bank there with some of the stuff they purchased. But there are also little knickknacks, little things that you can remember your journey to Batu with.
Exactly.
And you really enjoy yourself. So a lot of fun. And looking forward to getting back at some point. But it will be interesting to see what happens now that the reservation period is ending. Let's move on to our third main topic. We have so many main topics today, but we're going to do this one really quickly. If you want to get more of our review of Toy Story 4, I wrote one. You can find it on our website, but we just want to go quickly through it. We saw Toy Story 4 on Thursday evening, and boy, it was really enjoyable. It is so good to be back with our toy friends again and see how they've progressed. I don't think it's that much farther in timeline wise past when Andy went away to college, but it is interesting to see where we are.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's always just really amazing how they can take this group of friends and come up with another storyline that, puts them through adventure and, share a lot of things, go through some hardships. And I know we're not doing any spoilers, but that's just Pixar, right? Every Pixar movie has that. So, but it is great to see them having some rich storylines.
Right. Agreed. And we were concerned about that. Like, okay, they're making another one. It seemed like they wrapped up Toy Story so well with Toy Story 3, which we both loved very much. We was like, okay, well, what are they going to do now? How are they going to make this happen? And I don't know if it matched Toy Story 3, but it's right up there with Toy Story, Toy Story 2, Toy Story 3. And there's different opinions on what's your favorite film. It's right in that mix of being a very great movie. The animation is unbelievable. The facial gestures they can make, the expressions,
or just the scenery. It looks like, wow, that road looks so real, or that field looks so.
The cat was amazing. Yeah, it was unbelievable what they were able to do with the animation within this film. It's if you go back and watch Toy Story, and then you see how far they've progressed, and you can see it if you were to go and just watch Toy Story 2, Toy Story 3, and see the progression. It's incredible to see what they can now do with this computer animation. It's amazing. So this movie did have heart. I did tear up a couple times, but I wouldn't say it is that wrecked me like Toy Story 3 did, because I was a mess, and I know you were too during Toy Story 3, but it did have heart. I compare this movie more. I think this is more similar to Toy Story 2, maybe Toy Story. It's kind of more of the toys out on an adventure. It's more of that kind of feel with the humor. Yes, there is heart. There's always heart in these Toy Story films, but I kind of compare it more to either Toy Story, the original, or Toy Story 2.
Right. And I think too, when you look at a film that brings in some new characters and needs to take time to develop some of what they are, you might lose a little bit in the emotional aspects. Whereas Toy Story 3, we pretty well knew everybody. And it was just, you're already endeared with them and seeing what they were going through. I mean, yes, there were some new characters in that one too, but I think they really stuck to a lot of the heart of the characters that were the originals.
Agreed. Speaking of the new characters, I loved, I think, all the new characters, but especially, Forky was great. Tony Hale playing Forky. Totally enjoyed him and his little development there. Ducky and Bunny.
Oh my God,
they're
I never laughed
just
so hard.
So funny. They're so great. I just love them so much. And Duke Kaboom.
Yes.
Keanu Reeves as Duke Kaboom. Every time he's on the screen, he just kind of steals the scene.
Right.
It's just so funny. So I think bottom line is we would agree that we loved Toy Story 4. It's definitely another great Toy Story film. Is it the best Toy Story film? Probably not. But it's definitely worthy to be named Toy Story, because it is really, really great. And the Easter eggs, by the way, there's so much to see that we didn't even scratch the surface of all the different interesting things there are to see in it. Yes. We can't wait to see it again.
Oh, I know. Just to see more of those details and pick some more of those things out. That was really fun to have that included, to have them included in the film.
Right. Completely agree with you. So that's our review of Toy Story 4. We'd love to hear what you feel about it once you've seen it. We may eventually in another episode go into a spoiler-filled thing. We just don't have enough time to do both today, so we just figured we'd stick with the spoiler-free just in case you haven't seen it yet. So let's move on. Let's get to the Disney stories of the week. We've already talked a lot about Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Well, that's one of the biggest stories this week, is that the reservation system at the Disneyland Resort for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge comes to an end today when we're recording this on the 23rd. On June 24th, Monday, tomorrow, it's going to be a different system. So let's get into some of the details about how, if you're going to the Disneyland Resort and want to get into Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, how you can get in there. This is all from the Disney Parks blog. Beginning on June 24th, the Disneyland Resort may utilize a virtual queuing system as needed to help everyone have a great experience, is what they say. You can download the Disneyland app before arriving and check the app or sign it on the day of your visit to find out if you will need, and they say if you will need, you will probably certainly need to be part of a boarding group to visit Star Wars Galaxy's Edge that day. The boarding group will save you a virtual spot in line so that you can enjoy the experiences while you wait to be notified of your time to enter. So basically what's going to happen is, yes, if you happen to be staying at the Disneyland Resort and it's an early extra magic hour or whatever, you're probably going to be able to pretty much be part of that first group, get in. You cannot access this boarding group before you scan your ticket or your annual pass at the gate. As soon as you get in, it shows your ticket or your annual pass scan through. You can get on the app and register, and they'll give you a boarding group time. And so you kind of know when you're going to go in. Yeah.
And so for those of you who are familiar with the Max Pass at Disneyland, it would work similar to that. You know, at Disneyland, you cannot do advanced fast pass arrangements. You do it once you arrive in, like you said, honey, that you've checked in. So that's what this sounds like. It very much it mimics that type of process,
right?
You know, but I also love that they are looking at ways so that people who do go in there really enjoy their experience, to have it a more controlled amount of people.
Yes. So will be interesting to see how many people in there. I haven't heard yet if there's going to be a time limit on people in there. So if you do enter in, if you enter in at 8 a.m., can you be there till midnight? I don't know, but we'll find out more as we progress here. So continuing on with Disney Parks blog write-up of this, you may use the Disneyland app to request to be part of a boarding group after entering Disneyland Park, just as we talked about. Simply link the theme park tickets of everyone in your party together on the app to request the same boarding group for your entire party. To see which boarding group is currently being admitted to the land, look on the app or digital signage at the park. If you enable push notifications on your mobile device, you will be notified when it is your time to enter the land. If not, continue to check the Disneyland app or digital signage in the park so you can enjoy other stuff around the park while you're waiting for your time to get in there. If you do get that cue of saying, hey, your boarding group is ready, you don't need to rush to the entrance is what they say. You have 2 hours to get in there. So if you're going and having lunch and you're in the middle of lunch and they're saying, oh, your time is here, you don't need to dump your lunch or get out of the queue for Space Mountain or whatever it may be to run over to Galaxy's Edge. You have time to get there, so don't worry about that. If you're not using the app for whatever reason, you can still get a boarding group by using some of the Fast Pass locations throughout the park. Here's where they are. They're at Haunted Mansion, Indiana Jones Adventure, Space Mountain, Splash Mountain, or near the Matterhorn bobsleds. You can go ahead and there'll be areas apparently there where you can scan your ticket and get a fast pass for your boarding group, essentially. So you can kind of do that. So you don't have to have the app. The app is more convenient, but you don't have to have that.
Right. So that's great. And I mean, one thing about at Disneyland too is they have a lot of areas set up where they actually have, I guess you'd consider them almost like guest services people. They have little podiums and things throughout. So, you know, if you cannot find the Fast Pass areas, then, you know, certainly stop one of those cast members and they can help guide you.
Yeah, always willing to help. They are there to answer your questions and they'll be willing to help you for sure. Now, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge may no longer need reservations, but if you're planning on, and we just talked about this a little bit ago, if you're planning on going to Savi's Workshop or Oga's Cantina, you will need a reservation to get in there. Now, here's an interesting bite to this. If you want to go visit one of those, you can book a reservation on the day of your visit beginning at 7 a.m. with a valid credit card. So you'll need to go on the website or you will need to go on the app to do this at 7 a.m. Now, the interesting thing about this is that the credit card will reserve that. If you don't show up for Savi's Workshop, you are going to pay as if you bought a lightsaber $200.
Right.
If you don't show up for Oga's Cantina, it's reasonable. It's only $10. But you want to make sure you know these things going in, and for some reason you can't make it in. But the good news about this is that if you are able to book these reservations at 7 a.m. or whenever you can in the morning, I'm sure they'll go pretty quickly. You do not need a boarding group. Having that reservation will allow you to get into Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. So that's a kind of a way to know at 7 a.m. in the morning, if you can book one of those reservations, you're getting into Star Wars Galaxy's Edge that day.
Right. But again, I don't know that you're necessarily limited to that. And I would understand that they I think they do take walk-ins. It's just limited, and you don't know for sure if you're going to get in. And you, like you said,
Right.
without having that reservation, whether you would get a boarding pass to get into the land altogether.
Right. They say you'll need a reservation for both those things. I would still, when you get in there, and we'll find out more details as this new system comes into play, I would still go like if you're going in on Monday, and it's the first day or the first couple of days, I would still go to Oga's Cantina and ask them. Go to Savi's workshop and ask them. Just ask questions. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But if you don't get a reservation, it can't hurt to check to see if you can be a walk-in to get a return time,
Right.
whatever it may be. Maybe you can get in there. Who knows? If you want to get the reservations, go to Disneyland.com/Savi's Workshop. Obviously for Savi's Workshop. If you're going to Oga's Cantina, go to Disneyland.com/Cantina to get the important details in regards to that. So.
Yeah. So as I said, I think it's great that they are doing things to help control the amount of people going in so that the people who are there are experiencing a very, having the best experience, whereas other parts of the parks, they really can't do that. So it's good that they're taking that into consideration.
It's also good to know that if you get that boarding group or whatever, you can not just sit and wait and wonder, am I getting in there? You'll know
Right.
that it's going to happen at some point, and you can go enjoy the rest of the park in the meantime and you can even go over to Disney California Adventure Park and enjoy
Right.
some time over there if you want, just waiting to hear back from when your boarding group is going in. So interesting stuff. I think there's going to be some tweaking and twisting to it that's going to happen over the next several weeks, months, as they kind of figure this whole process out. But it's good to see that they're working on. Not that we were surprised that they weren't. They knew that they had here. And they knew they were going to have to do some things to make it not be just absolutely insane every time you tried to go to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge.
Right. Absolutely.
Let's move on from park news to theater news. And yes, we just talked about the great new Pixar film that was just released, Toy Story 4. Well, Pixar also announced that the title for a new film that's coming out next year in June. This straight from Forbes.com. This was a quote actually from the tagline or something about the story to the upcoming movie. Quote, "Ever wonder where your passion, your dreams, and your interests come from? What is it that makes you you?" That reads the tagline for Pixar's upcoming original, Soul, which is the new film that's going to be coming out in June of next year of 2020. Soul will arrive in theaters and take its viewers, quote, on a journey from the streets of New York City to the cosmic realms to discover the answers to life's most important questions, end quote. Fans on Twitter were quick to draw comparisons to older Pixar films like Inside Out, which explored an adolescent girl's emotional struggle to adjust to a new city. It doesn't surprise you that they'd be comparing it to this because this film is being directed by Pete Docter, who did, of course, Inside Out. He also did Up. Some of the more heart-filled Pixar films. Not that they don't all have heart,
Right.
but I think when you see a Pete Docter film, heart is at the base of it.
Emotion.
Yeah. And so it's going to be interesting the way they've created this, and I'm intrigued by it. Let's just say that, and that the
Right.
fact that there's two Pixar films coming out within months of one another next year, because Onward, who we just got the trailer for just recently, and it was on the Toy Story 4 trailer grouping right there, just came out as well. And that's coming out in March of 2020. And that's interesting because, one, it's voiced by Tom Holland, who we know for Spider-Man,
Right.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Octavia Spencer, Chris Pratt, of course, from many films, including the Guardians of the Galaxy. That's coming out as well. So it's just interesting. It's rare that you see a year where there's two Pixar films coming out in that same year, but even more so close together.
Yeah, it's exciting. And it sounds like they're, like one is, more of a story with adventures, and the other one is, at least Soul sounds more like one of those, like you said, heartfelt or emotionally driven of kind of the wise people do things. Whereas the other one is more of an adventure.
Yeah. So
It seems like it. I may be totally far off.
Right, which we probably will be by the time these come out. They'll be completely different than what we expect them to be. But just interesting, and I'm so excited that we have two new Pixar films. They're not sequels. They are brand new, original Pixar films that are coming out here in 2020. And I love all of Pete Docter's stuff, so I really expect Soul will be excellent. Maybe I'm setting the bar too high, but I'm really expecting this. Staying in the theater, the one more quick note here, Avengers Endgame is getting a re-release in theaters with added footage because we needed 8 more minutes or whatever it is that we haven't seen before to the 3-hour plus movie. But that being said, I'm excited to go see the extra 8 minutes of Avengers Endgame and when it comes out to theater. From what we hear, it's mostly just stuff at the end of the film, a post-credit scene, a tribute. So excited to check that out. And also one other note that I just discovered today, and this goes back to parks news and back to the Disneyland Resort, actually Disney California Adventure Park. If you haven't had the chance to go see the reissue of Soarin' Over California, Soarin' Over California, well, they've extended it. Yay! It's going to be continuing out there due to popular demand through the end of August. So that's great news. At first it was just going to be to the end of June. Now it's going to the end of August. So if you haven't got to go re-see, I don't know if even that's a word, but I'm having my struggles this afternoon. If you haven't got to review, re-experience, got to check it out again, you still have the chance to go see Soarin' Over California at Disney California Adventure Park.
And that's great news. And we did see it again recently, and it was fun. You know, the buzz of everybody in line, you know, that people really did like that one still. And yes, you know, there's a lot of great things about the new, you know, Soaring film, but that traditional one just has a lot of great things that people appreciate.
Right. We love Soarin' Around the World, but Soarin' Over California is the OG. It's the best one in our opinion. We love it so much, and we're so glad that it's back, and I'm so glad that we still might have a chance to check it out another time. But hopefully, I really would like to see them keep it around or keep it popping up at regular occasions every once in a while. But I'm so glad that we one, have already had a chance to experience it again, but two, we may have another chance to experience it over the next couple months.
Maybe they can do it seasonally like they do with the Dole Whip cotton candy.
Yeah, there you go. I like it. I still wanted them to do it like Star Tours, where you walk in and you don't know which one you're going to get. But I of course I'm making the Imagineers do something that they're not prepared to do, but I think that would be awesome personally. But so that's it for our parks news. We're just about to wrap up the show, but we never finish off any show without getting some sort of tip that might help you on your next vacation, whether it might help you when you're just going to see a movie, whenever you're going to the parks, Disney Cruise Line, whatever it may be. And we always start with Michelle, one, because she's lovely, wonderful, beautiful, all things that's good with the world, but also because she always has the absolute very best tip. So let's get right to it. Without any further ado, let's get to Michelle's tip of the week.
Well, thank you, honey. That's very sweet. I hope not to disappoint.
You never do. That's the thing, is you never disappoint.
Well, so I'm kind of going back to a little bit of a theme that I've shared in the past as it relates to their the park's first aid stations. And I know I've talked about that before, mainly as it related to getting, maybe baby supplies if you've forgotten something at home, or if you are breastfeeding, the availability there of a quiet, private place for that. And I know when you see first aid, you think that's the place to go to get a Band-Aid. And that is true, but there are a lot of other things that they can help with that can really be a vacation saver. So starting with the basics, let's talk blisters, and that can be a literal pain.
Why would you get a blister? I don't understand.
I know.
You're not like on your feet all day.
I know,
you're walking
right?
for miles when you're at the parks.
So, and obviously that would detract from your park enjoyment. So if you do experience a blister, don't go in and just ask for a Band-Aid. Let them know that you have a blister. Let the professionals help wrap it up. It's going to, that'll last longer. It will hurt less. And, it's really a much better way than just going in and asking for a Band-Aid. But in addition to that, there's some other things that could really impact your vacation to the point where you might say, oh, we have to leave the park because of this. And this first aid station may be able to really help you out. And I'm not trying to say the issue of an urgent care. I don't want to spread it in that regards. But let's say you have somebody in your party that's really having some symptoms of dehydration, and the first aid station can be a really great, cool spot to take a moment to get rehydrated. avoid getting into a worse situation of becoming extremely ill from the dehydration. And this is really an issue, especially for really tiny ones or elderly visitors who are more prone to dehydration or more sensitive to heat. So keep that in mind. And another way that it can prevent a situation from getting more serious is you might have somebody who in your party is experiencing panic attacks. I mean, we all love and appreciate the stimulation that the parks bring. But it also can be what plays into somebody's ability to feel comfortable or safe in that situation. So if you do have somebody experiencing a panic attack, one of the things a first aid station can be is a real oasis, a place to get away from all that stimulation and all the crowds and really have a chance to regroup and regain confidence to be able to go back and experience the parks. So, like I said, it could really make or break the need to leave a park. So trying to get people to not feel like you have to leave the park if you're having any of these kind of issues or other kind of issues. Remember that they're there for you and they can really help bridge you to get back into the swing of having fun at the parks.
Yeah, it's a perfect place. And they do also supply things like if you need some Tylenol, if you need some sunscreen,
Right.
They have all sorts of things like that. If you have, for whatever reason, forgot to bring them into the park,
Right.
You're in a pinch. I wouldn't overuse it, but if you do find yourself where you need something like that, they have that there. But the first aid areas are really great areas, and they do stock them and do wonderful things there. And of course, Michelle's tip, always the best tip, because it really is something important. I mean, you talked about the blisters. Yes, they happen. Different things happen. Dehydration and heat to stroke or
Right.
heat, it really can happen very easily. Not only, yes, of course, in Florida, at Orlando, we know that it's humid, it's hot, especially during the summer, but most of the year, it can be that way. But yes, even at Disneyland Park or at the Disneyland Resort, they can get very hot there and very dry, and there's not a lot of coverage for you and not as many ways to cool you down as they have at the Walt Disney World Resort. So you need to be wary of that. And the first aid stations are definitely a place that you can take advantage of trying to kind of get your group recovered for sure.
Absolutely.
So again, Michelle's tips, always the best tips. And that's a very important tip that you really do need to know if you're going on these vacations, that you could run into at any one time. My tip, a very simple tip, and something you probably don't really need to know, especially if you're not going to the Disneyland Resort, you definitely don't need to know this, but I got a little tip for you this week, something we actually did this week when we went, and that is if you're going and you're parking at the Mickey and Friends parking garage, or was coming out, which is the new Pixar Friends parking garage, Pixar Pals parking garage. If you're going that way, and let's say you're going to Disneyland Park first, and especially if you're going someplace deep in the park, whether it be Tomorrowland or Fantasyland, you might want to think about taking the monorail in, because there is a way from downtown Disney where you can get into the park and take the monorail straight into the middle of Disneyland Park. And we did that on this last trip, knowing that we were going right in to check in for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at the launch bay at Tomorrowland. Why go all the way to the front and go in when we could go in this different way? And I'm going to tell you also why that's sometimes a much more interesting way to go in. First, again, this is if you're coming from either of those parking garages, or if you're coming from any of the Disneyland Resort hotels there. Right. They're on that side of downtown Disney if you've ever been there before, or if you've never been there before, to kind of help you out. They have right now a walking path that gets you to downtown Disney from the parking garages and, of course, the resort hotels. Soon there will be a walking bridge. We saw it being constructed. It's not done yet. By the way, that Pixar Palace parking garage looks very close to being opening. We saw them trying out the escalators while we were there. That gives me a sure sign that they're getting pretty close to opening that. The walking bridge still looks like it's a little ways away, but I don't think it'll take that long for them to open up that, and it'd be even an easier way to get there. But yeah, you can walk rather than taking the tram. walk down into downtown Disney. The security into downtown Disney from the area you come from usually is pretty light. You can just breeze through it pretty quickly. As a matter of fact, we had a couple of security agents that were just waiting there. They looked bored because no one was there. They weren't checking any bags. Whizzed right through there. It's just a few steps from there to get to where the monorail is. The gate there usually doesn't have much wait to get in there to get your tickets or your annual passes scanned. You go in, you get on the monorail. It comes, actually, they were only had one running when we were there, so it was a little bit delayed, but usually they have a couple running at any one time, and you can get in pretty quickly. The best thing about this is it gives you, just like if you know from the Walt Disney World Resort, when you're going into Epcot, it gives you this sweeping view. It kind of goes through the park and it gives you a kind of a view when you get in there. Right. Same thing with the monorail at Disneyland. Is it goes through Disneyland Park. You get these great views of Fantasyland and Tomorrowland as you're going through there in some of the areas. And it's just a great way to kind of enter the park in a different way. I mean, of course you want to go down Main Street. There's always something great about going down Main Street and seeing the castle in front of you. But if you've already done that on this trip and you want to get in a different way, I really recommend this. It drops you off right there in Tomorrowland, so you can get to anything that's there. It's really right next to the Matterhorn and Fantasyland as well. And it's just a really nice and different way to get into the park. And we use it often. And it really is one of our favorite ways to get in and experience the magic right away.
No, it's a great tip. Sometimes, like you said, going through security, it's generally speaking, it's lighter there than if you're going through to get onto the trams. Even the ticket lines is much shorter than when you're in the general ticketing area. That's not to say that you might not run into something that is a little delayed, but generally speaking, it is those are faster experiences. And then, like you said, it tops it off with a more scenic route of, seeing the park before you actually get there. So that's a great tip.
Yeah. And whether it's faster than, taking the tram in from the garages and going into the front gate versus walking there and going into the monorail, I don't know for sure, but it's just a different way. And in some ways, it's just an more fun way. Yeah. And I find it fun. I always like riding the monorail in. The monorail leaving there, you can also take the monorail back if you really want to and get dropped off in the same location. But I find the monorail trip in to be the much more interesting one. Right. Much more worthy doing it. So that's my tip this week. Again, Michelle's tip, always the best tip. My tip, definitely a secondary tip, but we hope that you can have some use for them. So that's it for this week's show. Next week, it's been a while. We're getting back to our 5 favorite things series. And this one, we're not going to tell you about ahead of time. It's a mystery.
Honey, don't tell 'em.
You can speculate what we're going to do.
Let us know on social media what you think it is.
Yeah, it'd be kind of interesting to hear what you think we might be doing as our 5 favorite things series for next week. But we're going to have a lot of fun. We always love doing our 5 favorite things list. And those are some of, at least from our downloads, those are some of your most favorite episodes as well. So we're excited to do that again. And give us your speculation. We'd love to hear what you think we're going to do. Maybe it might actually change our minds. We might do something else. That's a better idea. Let's do that. Find us on social media. It's on Twitter at Hyperion Podcast, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest at Hyperion Adventures Podcast. And of course, you can always email us, HyperionAdventuresPodcast@gmail.com.
Right. And we love the interaction with everybody. Please keep it coming. And we love hearing from you. If you have an idea, if you have a critique for us, please let us know. Please reach out to us because we want this to be the best it can be. Absolutely. Definitely we want this to be the best podcast we can possibly make it. I know today, for me particularly, wasn't the best podcast I've ever done, but we try and put out the best product we can week in and week out. You're just tongue-tied today. Yeah, it's one of those days for sure. We appreciate you joined us today. In the future, you can find us the best place, our website, HyperionAdventuresPodcast.com. Again, HyperionAdventuresPodcast.com. I think I screwed it up again. HyperionAdventuresPodcast.com. Boy, it's been one of those days today. Please go check out our website. We're doing a lot of things to spruce it up, and we hope you're enjoying that. But you can also subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. Boy, we're almost done. Thank goodness. And you also can find us Podbean, Spotify, Stitcher, and now, yes, on iHeartMedia Podcast. Check us out on any one of those places or anywhere you find podcasts. And if you have the chance, first, please tell a friend about us, but you have a little more time, give us a rating. And if you have even a little more time, a review would be really wonderful. It really helps others just like you
find out about our show.
Yes, and we definitely appreciate those of you who have
So much.
already done ratings and reviews in the past.
Yes.
Thank you.
By the way, we had this thing that came to us this week that said we were ranked higher than we could have ever imagined on like kids and family on
I know,
Apple Podcasts.
that's
It was like
awesome.
it's 733 out of. It was just unbelievable, and that's all credit to everybody who's listened to us and has reviewed us and rated us. Thank you all for that out there. We love you all. You are amazing, and you are part of the reason. Well, one, we do this because we just like to talk Disney. We do this because when you encourage us so much, and we really, really appreciate you out there doing that for us. So thank you. That's it for this week. Thank you for joining us on the Hyperion Adventures podcast. We look forward to sharing some time with you again next week. But until that time, I'm Tom,
I'm Michelle.
and we hope that you have a magical week.